Alright, wanted to give everybody a recap of my triathlon yesterday, or I guess another duathlon from the Finger Lakes triathlon slash duathlon at Canandaigua Lake. So I registered for this race a couple weeks ago, immediately after my Durand race, and in the hopes of swimming, because I think swimming is probably my strongest event of the three disciplines of the swim, bike, run. So I registered for the race a couple weeks ago, put in some pretty good swim training sessions, and on Thursday, was it Thursday? Yeah, we found out that the swim was canceled for the race because of algae in Canandaigua Lake. So at least this time we had a few days heads up to kind of wrap our heads around, or at least wrap my head around having to run again before biking. But rather than the mile and a half, we were told that it was just going to be a mile run for the sprint athletes, and then a 13-mile bike ride, and then to wrap up with a 5K. So I felt really good going into this competition. I feel like I trained a little bit harder, was smarter about it, and more efficient with my workouts. So I was up at like 3:30 in the morning. I got to the venue at 5:15, picked up my packet, was all marked up, set up my bike. So I didn't know that like the stands and things at races are for your bike, and the transition are based on like tire width. So my bike fell over a couple times when I was trying to set it up. Unfortunately, there were a couple people that were helpful enough to inform me that people with fatter tires, bigger width, had their own sections, which kind of felt weird because I don't have like mountain bike tires. But anyway, set up my transition area in like 20 minutes because we're not swimming, and I don't have like clip-on shoes or anything like that. So really just gave me a chance to kind of like walk around the pier, or the venue where we were, the transition, and just kind of gather my thoughts about all the work that I put in, how hard I trained, and that I was ready to have good performance. So I entered the Clydesdale division this time, rather than age group, just to see how I would do against people my own weight, I guess. So it's kind of a interesting parallel with powerlifting, that there's actually a weight class. So Clydesdale is pretty much anybody over 220 pounds for this race. Other races, I think it's like over 230 pounds. I don't know if it's at the discretion of the race director or something like that. But I was definitely well over that. I weighed in at about 240. I was at 248 pounds, so about the same as I was for the race a couple weeks ago. Felt really good. I went out. We started our race at 8:14 for all the male sprint Clydesdales, and 40 to, I think it was like 40 to 59 age group. So I went out a little faster for my mile, what I thought was a little faster. I clocked in at 8 minutes and 36 seconds when I got into the transition area. I tried pacing myself a little bit more, but I realized a couple things, that sometimes what your watch tells you doesn't necessarily, I don't know, I guess relate to how you feel, because I felt really good, and my heart, or my watch, was telling me like otherwise, that I had really elevated heart rate, even though I didn't feel as though I was running as hard as I probably could have ran a little harder, but knowing the course, and it was a little bit more hilly on the bike, I thought I'd kind of try and conserve a little energy. I know it sounds horrible for a whole mile, but I went on 8:36. I got in the transition. It was my fastest transition that I've ever had. It was like 40 seconds. Got my helmet, sunglasses on, went out immediately, and rather than try and like go all out this time, the first like 4.5-5 miles were a gradual uphill. So I went out really slow for the first 5 miles. It was like 14.5 miles an hour my watch clocked me at. Overall for the bike, 16.7 miles per hour again. I don't have a road bike or anything like that. It's like a hybrid. And a couple people that I talked to in transition after, or in the transition area after the race, gave me some tips, some advice in regards to what type of bike to buy in the future if I plan on doing longer distance races. But the bike felt really good. I topped off, I think, at like 30 miles an hour going downhill before we made our last like 2-mile trek back into the transition. So the bike, I was on the bike for about 49 minutes. They clocked me in at like 48 minutes and change. So that felt really good, but it's the same miles per hour that I ran, or that I rode a couple weeks ago. And then I was on to the run, which again, I don't know how like the timing chips and things work, but from the time I crossed out of transition and the time I finished, my watch, I clocked at like 9:30 mile pace. They got me at 9:57. So I don't know which one was right, I guess. Well, I guess obviously theirs probably would be. But I finished the race in 1 hour 31 minutes and like 44 seconds. So I finished a few minutes faster than the last race, even though the run was a little shorter, but the bike was a little longer. All things being equal, feel really good. Felt really good about the race. I feel like I prepared really well, or much better than I did for the one, a couple weeks ago. 2, believe it or not, I actually won the Clydesdale overall division with my time for my age group, 35 to 39. I would have finished like in the middle of the pack. I think I would have finished 4th out of like 9 competitors, which that wouldn't have been too bad, even though 2 of the podium finishers for the sprint came out of my age group. So 35 to 39 seems to be pretty competitive. I'm about twice the size as those guys, so if I have any chance of being competitive outside of the Clydesdale division, I probably need to lose another 50, 60, and probably 70 pounds. But it's really fun so far. So for this season, I guess I really started training at the end of May, is when I bought my bike. I just kind of journaled about it a little bit. I only got like 30 bike sessions in since May, 40 or so run sessions for about 42 or 420 miles total bike work, 120 miles of running, which our college kids get like that in like a week and a half. So I'm not trying to like compare myself, but one of my biggest takeaways from the season is, you think you're working hard, but there's a million other people that are working much harder than you and are in much better shape than you are. This has definitely been a real like humbling experience for me. At least in like powerlifting, I was kind of competitive for my weight class, either 275 or 242, regardless of like my age, whether it was open or junior or whatnot. But this has really been really humbling, like I said. But my biggest takeaway is, you think you've trained hard, you got to train a lot harder. But with the harder part comes more efficiency. And I've noticed that my training sessions were a little bit more efficient. Like I actually planned out what I was going to do for like the last month or so. I didn't have like specific days, everything written in stone. Like if I felt really good getting off my bike, I did like a short brick workout, but Saturdays and Sundays I did have like more difficult training sessions built in, just because I have more time to recover. I don't have to worry about anything else, and for me they're really short. So like a 20-mile bike ride and a 5K after the fact would only take like an hour and 40 minutes, and I was done with my sessions for the day. So that's one big takeaway. Number 2 is definitely paying attention to your nutrition. I didn't take in like any gels or anything. I didn't learn about that stuff, but that's something that I definitely needed to spend more time focusing on this upcoming year, is nutrition, definitely more rest and being cognizant and like mindful of that, and recovery. I guess I'm gonna kind of lump all of those together. Rest, recovery, and nutrition. The night before the race, and actually just a couple weeks leading up to it, I was averaging about 8.5 hours of sleep with minimal disturbances, which is really nice. Now I know those things are really out of my control. With three little guys, You know, if the baby gets up in the middle of the night, or one of the two older ones, you know, wants me to cuddle with them or something like that, that's what you do, and it's kind of disruptive. But you know, like I said, I'm really really new to this. I have no idea what I'm doing still, but it's fun to kind of like chronicle this journey. And my third biggest takeaway really is more about like competition. Like I thought I was competing hard yesterday, and I guess I don't know if it gets come back to like the technology stuff. Like I thought I was training hard, but my heart rate didn't indicate that. Like I only averaged like 150 beats a minute for an hour and a half, which I don't know. Like I went out really well on my run, my bike. I know there were some parts where I was kind of cruising a little bit, where I really probably wasn't pushing as hard as I was. And then on the run, I think I definitely left some in the tank, even though it was my fastest 5K race of my life. So I mean, I've only done 3, but it's still my fastest one. But yeah, I don't know. It's something different about triathlon and versus powerlifting and like throwing and track. Like you know it's gonna hurt, you know it's gonna suck for a little while, but then like I crossed the finish line and I was like, man, like I could have gone a little harder. Like I could have rode my bike a little harder. I could have gone out maybe in like 8 minutes and 15 seconds instead of like 8:36, or I could have gone out my first mile of the 5K in like 9:10 as opposed to like 9:30. Like I guess still trying to figure out this whole competition stuff, but I've definitely felt with the 2 races this year that I've left something in the tank. So it's something to work on, is being more efficient with my training. It's one takeaway that I definitely need to work on. Rest, recovery, and nutrition. You know, maybe working with a coach or working with a nutritionist, something to help me figure out what I could do to perform better. You know, throughout the whole course of the season, I lost from, like, say, our last outdoor track meet in the middle of May to yesterday's weigh-in. I lost about 35 pounds. So the last meet I weighed you know, close to 280 pounds. It was 248 yesterday. So I feel really good about myself, body-wise, body comp-wise. Like my belts fit a little better. My lifting belts that you can see over my shoulder there. And then training hard, or competing hard, excuse me, is my third biggest takeaway. You know, there were some people that like definitely left everything on the course yesterday, and I know now, reflecting back, that I didn't, even though I'm still sore, my calves are on fire, my quads are still kind of tight. I know that I should have been able to compete a little harder than I did. But so with that being my last race of this season, I'm going to start transitioning more, and it's fitting that I'm, you know, taping this in front of my powerlifting cage. I haven't got like a serious training session, weightlifting training session done in months, and I feel horrible saying that, but it's just something that I put on the back burner. I was training for a powerlifting meet that got derailed this winter, and then when I decided that I was going to go full force with you know, this triathlon training, even though they were short races, I didn't dedicate any time at all to strength training. So it's something that I'm going to transition to now. Actually, after I finish recording this, I'm going to start the first training session of the next season, I guess this upcoming 2020 season. I'm going to train conjugate, and I kind of talked about that a little bit in the last video, and I have a couple posts, Instagram posts about that, but I'm really going to focus more on strength training a little longer into the season, you know, maybe through April or May, depending on when my first race is next year. And just try and be more efficient and more cognizant of my time, rest, recovery, you know, try and get my body weight down a little bit more. You know, it'd be nice to compete at like 230, 220 next year. So I got to figure out that whole nutrition stuff. So if anybody who watches this who is interested, who's a nutritionist, you know, dietitian who's interested in working with a, you know, a fat dad, who has sometimes a crazy work schedule and a crazy training schedule. I'd be more than happy to chat about that stuff, because I know I need help, and I think I'm smart enough to realize that if I want to do a half Ironman next year, I won't be able to just oh, today I'm going to do a 50-mile bike ride, tomorrow I'm going to do a 10-mile run. Like, I know I'm going to need help with that. But thanks for everyone for watching and and commenting and things like that. I really appreciate it. I don't know if any of the stuff that I talk about brings value to anybody, but if it brings value to somebody, I hope I can help you along on your journey as well. It's not, I thought training for like throwing and powerlifting was difficult, but training for triathlon, even though they're real short races, is much more difficult than that. Definitely takes a little bit more of positive mindset, and that this training sessions are going to hurt, and it's going to hurt for a while, but then once you finish and you hit stop on your watch, that pain kind of goes away a little bit. But I'm really excited to continue like taping these videos and things. If there's anything that anybody's interested in like learning more about, or interested in hearing my thoughts about, let me know. I'm going to start posting more weightlifting, strength training videos now, since I'm not going to be focused as much on triathlon training. I switched out my bike, so I got the trainers empty in the basement. I'm going to continue with bike training sessions outside as long as I can, as long as the weather permits. Same thing with running. Like, I feel like I've worked really hard to get down to 9:30 pace for a 5K after 13-mile bike ride, which is still, like I said, it's difficult for me not to try and compare myself to other people who've been doing this for a long time. Which actually, so that's my fourth takeaway also, is time. I started training like more seriously for this, like I said, in May, so it's at like a few months, where yesterday, some people, it was like their 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th races of the season. So they have more training time than I have, or they have more competition time than I have training time. So it's definitely something that takes time. Definitely have to put in the work, but it has to be smart work, not just mindless. Let me go out and ride my bike for 2 hours without a purpose. But I'm getting kind of like all scattered all over with this video. But I appreciate everyone who took the time to watch and has been following along. I got a little website too. It's called lifttotri.com. Also, LIFTTOTRI.com, where I'm kind of posting my training thoughts as well, and hopefully it brings value to somebody, and you're interested in following along on this crazy triathlon journey with me. But I appreciate everyone's time today, and have a great day.